I want to sort of shift away from the politics on this and talk about sort of the media Platnerverse, actually, we'll call it. That's probably going to be the name of this episode, actually, that built this guy, right? Because, like you said, he comes in with this splashy ad. He has a gravelly voice.
I
I'm a
remember.
Maine lobsterman and fuck the oligarchy and blah, blah, blah. I was a Marine, blah, blah, blah.
Can I just say, like, in terms of gaslighting, like, everyone telling me how hot he is, I'm sorry.
God.
No.
Okay, I like gingers, and no.
I mean, it's like, obviously, in light of all the things we know, that makes him even less attractive. But like, I just was never like, yeah, I don't know about that guy, but he's easy on the eyes. I'm like, no,
I never saw it. I don't know. Christine, it's been a minute.
I know.
Oh, glad to be back.
Mm-hmm. Not a minute since we've seen each other, though.
That's true. Well, with the busy summer schedules, I've had a bunch of travel. You've been busy. We couldn't get it before now, but we're back.
Mm-hmm.
Who are we canceling today?
Graham Platner.
Not only are we canceling Graham Platner, we're canceling the entire Graham Platnerverse.
Ooh, a multiverse of Graham Platners.
It's like the worst version of the Avengers. Hey everyone, I'm Katelyn Burns.
And I'm Christine Grimaldi.
And you're listening to Cancel Me Daddy,
the show where we take a closer look at all the panic around political media.
With thoughtful analysis.
And verbal shitposting.
Oh, it's so good to be back, Christine. It's so good to be back. I've missed this.
I know, me too.
It was incredibly frustrating trying to get these schedules to match up, and we still barely made it work for this week.
Yeah, I am piecing together childcare like a quilt this summer. It's my first real one in the parenting ring, you know.
I have been traveling all over the country.
Yeah, you have. Tell our listeners.
I went to a World Cup game in Los Angeles, the USA versus Turkey. Trip of a lifetime. Went with my dad, and actually, the U.S. men's national team run in the World Cup ended in controversy, and we will talk about that in our bonus episode on Patreon and on Apple Podcasts. So make sure you check that out later. But let's get into the show. We have the amazing Marisa Kabas from The Handbasket joins us once again. She was on a couple months ago. She was great. We all love her. And we are canceling the shit out of everything Graham Platner.
Let's get to it.
Marisa, welcome to Cancel Me Daddy. Welcome back to Cancel Me Daddy.
Thank you.
We're glad to have you back.
Yes, please be a voice of reason amid all the media discourse.
Yeah, so we have you back on here to talk about the Graham Platnerverse. Is that a thing? Platnerverse?
I'm calling him Splatner.
Splatner, okay.
Mm-hmm.
I like it.
So you wrote a recent piece for The Handbasket, and we are so thrilled to have you back.
Yeah, I'm so glad to be here and to talk about horrible men for a change.
Well, we knew that Graham Platner was horrible for quite a while for, many different reasons, whether it was the Reddit posts or the Nazi tattoo. I can't believe that I'm putting all of these words together in one sentence, but I think that you made some really profound points in your piece for The Handbasket, which was called "We Didn't Need a Rape Accusation to Know Graham Platner Was Unfit." Can you talk us a little bit through, what got you there?
Sure. So I've been kind of keeping the Platner story at arm's length for a while, until now, that is. I saw his big announcement last year, and he was being touted as this progressive savior. And I watched some of the videos that he did. And to be honest, it never quite clicked for me. I wasn't really quite sure what people were seeing. But I guess even with the Nazi tattoo thing, that was already last October, and the Reddit posts, I guess I was sort of the mind, let the Maine voters decide. Because I know that it's really frustrating when people out of state get involved in your state's local business. So, but I think for me, that was also like a bit of a cop out, just because I wasn't really sure what to say, because it was such a bizarre situation. And so I think things really coalesced for me when the New York Times story came out in early June, right before the primary, allegations of him being abusive to partners. It wasn't rising to the level of assault, but that doesn't make it not terrible. And to me, the picture of who he was became very clear in that moment. Like I was like, this is a dangerous guy. And it was really just a matter of time until the other shoe dropped. And then he went on to win the primary, which was not unexpected, but he still won by, a huge margin because he wasn't really running against anyone. And then, of course, we got these allegations last week that he raped a former partner of his. And for some people, that was like, okay, he's finally gone too far. And to me, it felt like he's just continued to go too far. And this is just like another horrendous data point in his resume.
Yeah, dangerous was a word that you used a couple of times in the piece, and I found it really telling because, yeah, he is dangerous, certainly in his personal life. And that's also not somebody I want in power making decisions on my behalf.
No, absolutely not. And that's the thing when you're choosing someone to represent you. I mean, it's like, all the people who are like, well, no one's perfect and we're not going to find candidates who are squeaky clean. But like, we also are well within our rights to judge candidates on whatever we want. Like you're allowed to not like someone because you don't like their haircut. I'm not saying that's a good reason not to like a candidate. I'm just saying that like, it's up to you. You have your own personal reasons for whether or not you vote for someone. So if there's already tons of evidence of this person just being generally not a good person, holding some really disgusting views, that's enough. It shouldn't have to get to the level of a rape accusation for suddenly people to be like, okay, yeah, you know what, you're right. You're right. He doesn't seem like a great guy.
I mean, I kind of knew that this was going to implode one way or the other when the Nazi tattoo came out. I mean, I am probably one of Susan Collins's biggest haters. I was there. I've told this story before on the pod, but I was there in the Hart Atrium in DC, which is the Senate, like one of the Senate office buildings, with dozens of protesters who have been protesting the Kavanaugh confirmation. And I was there in the Hart Atrium when Susan Collins gave her speech saying that she was going to vote to confirm Kavanaugh. And that was like the last like shoe that had to drop for his confirmation. And I was sitting there and there's like, dozens of these, mostly women volunteers, activists, protesters, just absolutely sobbing. And it's one of the images that I don't think will ever leave my head. So I want to start from a baseline of Susan Collins has to go. And I am an any means necessary type of person, right? So I think this is what I struggled with. But the second the Nazi tattoo thing came out, I'm like, oh, he's going to lose. Like, even if he gets to the general election, he's going to lose because Susan Collins is famously made out of Teflon, like even more so than Donald Trump. Like, there have been strong candidates who have challenged her before. In the last election, Sarah Gideon, who was the Speaker of the House in Maine, ran against him and just got absolutely shellacked. Like, it was not a close contest. Gideon outraised Collins, outspent Collins, and just, it was not close.
It's interesting that you bring up Susan Collins and the Kavanaugh confirmation vote, because the last few days have actually felt kind of full circle from that moment in terms of, I remember I wasn't at the Capitol that day, but I remember just being out working in a coffee shop and, seeing the news alert. And I felt so profoundly sad in a way that I have very few times before. And I remember actually going over to a girlfriend's house and a few of us like hung out, and my husband, who's my boyfriend at the time, I was like, I don't want to see you right now. Like I actually cannot deal. Us girls were just sitting there, just really, it felt like something had been stolen from us, and it felt like a funeral. And coming back to this week and Platner and the accusations against him and the way that a lot of people have reacted to those accusations and the way that his victim is still not believed by a lot of people, it just that palpable misogyny and rape culture, frankly, that was evident during the Kavanaugh confirmation hearings is back in full force right now.
Yeah, from alleged allies even.
Yes.
makes it even harder. Yeah, I definitely felt that also. And there's been just rampant gaslighting with this guy since the start.
Like, is it a
But
Nazi tattoo? Is it not a Nazi
right.
tattoo if you
But
like squint and look through your hands?
I wrote on my newsletter, I'm like, look, you can't run the Nazi tattoo guy against Susan from the county, right? Like, she's from Aroostook County, which is the northernmost county by land area. It's like as big as the rest of New England on its own. It's like true Maine, quote unquote. It's like everybody up there knows her and has been helped by her family and government for years. Like, Susan Collins to this day still has like a good reputation amongst centrists in Maine. She's very difficult to beat, and I'm like, you just can't run this guy. He's not going to win. I'm sorry. And people insisted that I was wrong about that. I lived in Maine for most of my adult life, although I guess that's not true anymore since I've moved away. Like I have roots in Maine, and I just knew it wasn't going to go well. So I got screamed at by everybody. People insisted that it wasn't a Nazi tattoo, that it was like a Jolly Roger, which is the pirate skull and crossbones. Very different. Like, it's insulting to make that insistence. It's just been an exercise in gaslighting ever since. Every new thing that we learn about this guy, it's, oh, no, he's changed. No, he's changed. Why can't you believe that people change? And I'm like, what evidence is there that he's changed? He's lied about every single thing that he's done. I'm sorry, I'm ranting.
No, but changed since when also? Like, it was so far in the past, a couple years ago.
What evidence is there that he's changed? He's lied about every single thing that has come out about him. Mm-hmm. Like, how do we know he's not lying about the policies that you like so much about him just to get into a position of power? I'm like, you can't trust this guy. And it's been so infuriating because I want Susan Collins to lose. And I'm not sure that's going to happen now. And it's his fault, and it's the people that put him in that position. Sorry. End of rant.
It was a beautiful rant because you're actually from Maine, so you can, speak.
Oh, hold up. No. I am not from Maine.
Oh.
You have to be born in Maine to be from Maine. Otherwise, you're from away, they say.
So even if you are of New England stock and lived in Maine for a significant amount of time.
From away.
Okay.
I'm from evil Massachusetts.
From near away.
So, but my kids are born there, so they're Mainers, okay. Even though they've lived most of their life out of state.
But they are from Maine,
right? Very provincial up there. They are. So, okay, let me see if I can get to a question here.
I have one, which
is go ahead.
I feel like we're now in the same position as we were with the 2024 presidential election. Joe Biden, Kamala Harris. Biden took quite some time to step back from the nomination, allowing Harris to come on board. I forget how many days it was. I know that was the title of her memoir that was released. But yeah, like because of a man's ego, yet again, a woman has to come on board. I don't know who's going to be Platner's replacement, but somebody is going to come on board and try to turn this around in a very short amount of time. And a lot of people's lives hang in the balance. I'm not saying that flippantly. Susan Collins's decisions over the past 10 years have really fucked people in this country and in Maine too. It goes without saying.
Yeah. It is actually a life or death situation. And I think that's why people were so excited about Platner, because he did have all this momentum and they felt like maybe there really is finally a chance to meet Collins. But unfortunately, like you said, Katelyn, when you see those early signs of trouble, they're not going to go away. It's not going to get better from there. It's only going to get worse. And yes, the tattoo was early on, but the Reddit posts were not too long after, I don't think. I mean, maybe a couple months. But there was a point, they reached a point where they could have turned back, where they could have re-strategized. And I understand that they sunk so much time and money into him that they felt like they couldn't. But it's never too late to replace a piece of shit. I don't know. That's just like how I feel.
Put that on a shirt.
I think that Janet Mills did us a disservice by not really taking the campaign the primary campaign seriously. Like, there was little evidence that she devoted any time or resources into the campaign. I mean, she was always behind in the polls, so I don't necessarily blame her, but like, perhaps we could have looked at investing in other candidates at some point.
Yeah, there was no real opposition, and there was never any point where he really was on his back foot having to defend himself from like a policy standpoint. The only time he had to defend himself was about his personal life.
Yeah. I want to sort of shift away from the politics on this and talk about sort of the media Platnerverse, actually, we'll call it. That's probably going to be the name of this episode, actually, that built this guy, right? Because, like you said, he comes in with this splashy ad. He has a gravelly voice. I'm a Maine lobsterman and fuck the oligarchy and blah, blah, blah. I was a Marine, blah, blah, blah.
Can I just say, like, in terms of gaslighting, like, everyone telling me how hot he is, I'm sorry, I just...
God.
No.
Okay, I like gingers, and no.
I mean, it's like, obviously, in light of all the things we know, that makes him even less attractive, but like, I just was never like, yeah, I don't know about that guy, but he's easy on the eyes. I'm like, no,
I never saw it. I don't know. Maybe I have PTSD from that type of Maine guy from my past dating life. I don't know.
I remember when the ad came out, and you and I talked about it.
I was genuinely excited about him.
Like, for like a week before, or 2 weeks, 3 weeks before the elevation sorted out. Yeah,
it was a couple of months, I want to say.
Okay,
I think he announced in August, and the Nazi tattoo was in October.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. One quick thing about the Nazi tattoo: he released the video himself.
Right.
It was his campaign released it as like getting ahead of the oppo. He goes, "Yeah, I get wild at parties," and he releases this video of him shirtless at his friend's wedding, and there's a Nazi tattoo. And I'm like, does no one on your staff know what that symbol means?
Or like, at the very least, be like, there's a huge tattoo on your chest. You're running for Senate, so like, can you tell us what you think that means? Like, just to have some sense of like what they're putting out into the world.
Right.
But that just shows that the lack of care throughout the entire thing, because the people who discovered him, who plucked him out of obscurity, have admitted as much, that they did not vet him, that they didn't know anything about him. And so this idea that his politics could have wildly changed once he was elected is actually very fair, in a way that is slightly different than Fetterman, even though there are a lot of comparisons made to them. He was more of a known quantity. He had served in office before.
Mm-hmm.
This guy was literally plucked out of nowhere, shucked out of nowhere, if you will. And so we just didn't know anything about him. And all these pretty prominent people were throwing their weight behind a guy that we didn't know. I think that's what's also really scary.
Yeah, and we should talk about how he came to be like known to people. He was a bartender in DC, and I don't see it in our notes, the name of the place.
The Tune Inn.
Do you know the place, Christine?
Yeah, I do know it.
What's
on
the
Capitol
reputation of it?
I think it's like kind of a bro-y Capitol Hill bar. I haven't been there in years, and I think I remember that it burnt down and then they rebuilt it.
Where was Platner that night?
Oh gosh, help us all. Is that the next allegation?
Well, like, Ryan Grimm frequented this bar. Like, but it seems like a bunch of these sort of lefty or self-proclaimed lefty DC journalists frequented this bar and got to know Platner. And I think that was sort of his into all of this. He was hand recruited by, oh God, I don't have the name.
The vocal fry guy.
Yeah.
Dan Maroff.
Dan Maroff, who I think himself has been accused of sexual assault.
He has been accused of sexual misconduct, for which he was allegedly barred from Summer Lee's congressional campaign. I actually am working on a story about Dan Maroff, so I can give the quick few to get us up to speed about who he is.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Sure. Yeah. So he is, I believe he's 34 years old. He was a young guy, went to Brown, graduated in 2014, and then just got really into lefty politics. And he was somehow part of the Bernie 2016 campaign. And then he moved to Pittsburgh in about 2016, got really involved with the DSA there. And he was part of recruiting populist candidates there, working class populist candidates. And Summerlee, when she was running for the state house, was one of those people. She was obviously one of the great ones that he was able to find, but there were a whole host of other people who were very problematic who ended up having to drop out. He has a very uneven past with who he's picked. And so when it came time for Summerlee to run, when she decided to run for Congress in 2022, he was involved with the campaign. And then according to some reporting last week that was published, there were allegations of some sort of sexual misconduct against him, at least 3 allegations. And supposedly Summerlee banned him from working on the campaign. But the details about who said this and how confirmed that is are kind of scant. And what I'm working on is that there have been allegations of sexual assault against him. That's a story that I have coming. It's kind of bizarre because it's like this, like Russian nesting dolls of like terrible men. Because it's like there's Platner at the center, and then he is discovered by this guy who has allegations against him and clearly doesn't have very good judgment when it comes to this sort of thing. And then on top of it, the reporter who reported the story last week has some allegations of harassment against him that many people have reached out to me about. So it's just, as a woman journalist, it's really maddening right now, like how they're all just like stacked on top of each other. So that's the Dan Moreau side note.
I want to claim that this is my stop. So you have just these people who obviously have little care for women are making these decisions and shaped this national story. Again, I keep coming back to the frustrating part is they're trying to beat Susan Collins, who in my mind is an enemy of women, for the justices that she's put on the Supreme Court alone, on top of the other things. You know, she votes with Trump like 98% of the time, and the only times that she doesn't vote with Trump is when her voting the other way doesn't matter, which is the great trick of electoral politics or parliamentary politics. I want to talk about the media people. Christine and I did a bonus episode about this before the rape allegations against Platner came out. So if people want to go look at that, it's $5 a month on Patreon or Apple Podcasts if you want to subscribe to our bonus content. And you can hear our take then and how it's changed since now. I'm not sure it has changed all that much, but we had, after the New York Times piece dropped, we had a cavalcade of male lefty, leftist. I don't know what you want to call it, because I don't think all of these people are actually leftist. Can I talk today? I don't think all of these people are actually leftist. I think a lot of them play it on TV, but that's, maybe we get into that. I don't know.
Yeah, I have some things to say there. We can go back.
You have Ryan Graham, Matt Stoller, Ken Klippenstein, who actually I don't think is a leftist. I think he's just a journalist of amorphous politics, right? Like, we've had him on the show, actually, which, fuck.
Well, we're going to talk about that.
Yeah, what was that like?
We had him on to talk about Epstein, and he actually did I thought, a good job on our show.
Yeah.
And he centered the victims of all of it in a way that, like, I don't even think I was thinking at the time, because I was looking at it as a political story. And he kind of brought us back to, no, we got to look at the victims first. So I thought his appearance on our show was great, but like, I don't endorse anything that he said about this shit.
But you know, it makes it all the more surprising to hear him talk like this now.
Yeah. So I wanted to get through these people. You know, he had defenders in Pod Save America, like the Pod Johns, if you will.
I think it was specifically John Faverau was like the one.
John Faverau. We had, what's her name from, is it the Minority Report? The Majority Report?
Crystal Ball. Emma Vigeland.
Emma. who I used to admire before this. She's had me on the show over there also, but she's kind of out of pocket with this stuff. So you have this whole, and like Hasan Piker was a big Graham Platner guy, continued to defend him even after the New York Times story. And a few of these people have said, like, look, the rape allegation changes things. I stand by what I wrote about the underlying dynamics of Platner and my comments of it, but like this guy obviously can't be the candidate. And I'm like, okay, are you having any more retrospection than that? Matt Stoller comes out and says Graham Platner is a response to the HR lady Democratic politics. You had Ken Klippenstein saying that Graham Platner represents the end of the smooth-growing politician, which he has since gone on to use to imply that smooth groins are actually the people who are opposing Graham Platner, which I'm like, okay, like, don't worry about unpacking the misogyny on that, buddy.
Yeah.
And I could go on and on and on. Ryan Grimm has been especially vigorous. He's still trying to discredit the political reporting about the rape allegations, quite embarrassingly. I have my own Ryan Grimm story, which maybe I tell later. I'm not sure. My question to you is, what's up with all that?
Is that all?
I recounted a bunch for our audience who maybe haven't been paying attention, but what are your thoughts on these people and why they thought Platner was such a great white male hope, if you will?
Mm-hmm. I think they just saw the women coming forward against Platner as dispensable, and that they had these experiences, but is it worth kneecapping the greatest political campaign in the history of all political campaigns? It just seemed like an inconvenience, and it was sort of like, oh God, why'd she have to say that? And I do think that it has revealed something about men who are on the left, whatever you want to call it, leftist journalists, that they see other men as their allies, no matter what their political party is, before they see progressive women as their allies. And something that really stood out to me that his alleged rape victim said to Politico is that I didn't want to come forward because I share a lot of the same politics as Platner. And she felt like she was going to be personally responsible for bringing down the movement in this moment. And I think that we progressive women on the left are forced to bear that burden a lot and to sacrifice our own needs, when in reality, as we were talking about a few minutes ago, we've had our rights taken away. We've watched abortion be taken from us thanks to Susan Collins. That is the ultimate indignity, to live in a time where we have we're getting fewer rights. And so I think that we're just supposed to deal with it. And I think finally we're just we don't want to deal with this shit anymore. And these men on the left don't know how to deal with that because they're still used to being the men. They're still used to being in control of the conversation. And they also see siding with victims of sexual assault or caring about that as a core issue, as being weak and feminine coded. And it's not something that is germane to their lives, when in reality it affects all of us.
When you talked about the rape victim speaking about how she felt guilty for coming forward as if she was the one to bring down this movement, it touched a chord, and it made me think about the allegations that came out against Cesar Chavez a couple months ago in the New York Times, and Dolores Harta. And, none of these movements are just one man. It's so much more than that, which I think is what one of Chavez's alleged victims told the Times.
I want to jump in here. We keep referring to Platner's victim, and her name is Jenny Rasico. I think we're pronouncing that right. If not, deepest apologies. And I just want to be cognizant that, she has a person with a name, and we don't have to keep referring to it as the victim. I wrote a response a while ago talking about Ken Klippensteins and the Matt Stollers and Kyle Kowinski, who's an influencer on YouTube, who, when the sexting scandal, which is one we haven't named so far, when we learned that actually Platner had been sexting with other women early on in his marriage, he was Kyle Kowinski was like, Platner could be sexting with my mom and I would still vote for him. And I'm like, dude, have some self-respect. I understand you're excited about the guy, but ew.
Yeah.
So when I wrote this piece, like I called this brand of like Platner defense because I wanted a response to Klippenstein's smooth groin comment. So I called it codpiece politics. Codpiece, for our history fans, and we have a few on this podcast, is the medieval fashion of having a dick pouch in your clothes, in your tights. And the funny part is you didn't actually put the dick in there. It was all stuffed and empty and it was all for show, which I thought was very apropos of what we're seeing here. But I made the point of like, not only do these men like discount the unique needs and vulnerabilities of women and I would say people of color, especially women of color and, LGBT folks as well. But it also leaks into their politics. Like a lot of these people have this idea that being a leftist means supporting hammer and sickle labor. So farm workers and industrial workers, factory workers. Mm. But if you look at like the labor movement of today, it's not just auto workers, it's public school teachers, it's nurses. I mean, I'm going for a medical consultation this week at a hospital that is in the middle of a labor dispute, and I'm like, what do I do about this, right? But because those are like feminized workplaces, those types of like the needs of those workers, I feel like take second fiddle to like a coal miner or whatever. Is it just misogyny? Like, is it your take that it's just misogyny, or what's going on here?
It's not just misogyny, but I do think that that's at the core. And I do think it's about an image of who is working class, who is the face of the party. And it's interesting you mentioned that because you think about how Platner himself was found and how because he looked a certain way and he had a certain job, that he was considered this avatar for working class people, even though, as we know now, that it's, underlined by a lot of things that are the antithesis of being working class.
You went to Hotchkiss in Connecticut, which is one of the wealthiest schools for fail sons and daughters in all of New England. I actually played against them once in soccer, and then they took us to the dining hall after the game, and it was the best meal I've ever eaten. And I'm like, this is a high school. What's going on here?
Wait, anyway. This reminds me of the Cider House Rules. Only good night, you fail sons of Maine.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, I'm sorry.
He is a fail son of Maine, and that's the thing. Like his dad pays his mortgage, his mom is his main client for his oyster farm. There's nothing genuinely working class about him, but because he looked the part, because he was literally cast by Dan Raff and Morris Katz, that he. If you say it enough times, then it's true. He is the working class. Yeah. But if a nurse was running for that seat and pulled all this shit, would she be offered the same grace? Would she be considered, oh, she's just such a complex person that no one indiscretion could define her? Why would you hurt the movement by hurting her?
Yeah.
And it's just this cult of personality that just went way too far. I mean, I've heard that the people who discovered whatever, encouraged Platner to run, recruited him, were saying that he could be president. Like in the early days of his campaign, they were already telling other people that he was going to be president one day. It's just so delusional.
Yeah.
That's what gets me. They're so delusional, and women are so much more grounded in reality, I think. And yet we're the ones who are treated like we are not focusing on what's really important.
Yeah. How much do you think all of this comes from? Okay, I'm just going to address the elephant in the room. Bernie Sanders at the top of this movement. Now, full disclosure, I have a soft spot for Bernie. Like, I think his policies in particular, the things that he's argued for, his support of trans rights in the last 20 years have been great. But he also de-emphasizes identity in his own politics. And this is something that has bled down into his movement. I don't particularly like the phrase Bernie bros because, I mean, not all of them are bros. But they keep wanting to try to turn class politics. They only want to focus on class. and they don't look at other forms of oppression besides class, and it just keeps not working.
Yeah, and I also think that they de-emphasize the personal, the identity, unless it's a white man running for office.
Yeah.
I mean, what is more important than Graham Platner's supposed identity in this situation? Like I was saying before, he had no bona fides, he had no experience, no track record. It was literally like, just because this guy has these qualities, we should trust him, even though he's done nothing to earn that trust. And I mean, it is remarkable looking back now and hearing how quickly Bernie Sanders endorsed Graham Platner. I think it was a matter of a couple of weeks. And it was because the people who were telling him to endorse, I guess, were people that he'd worked with in the past and whose judgment he trusted. And to be honest, it just sounded like a lapse in judgment from Sanders and his team. They, the Platner campaign didn't do their due diligence, and then Sanders and his crew didn't do due diligence. And so it was just cascading effects from there. And I think that some responsibility has to be taken for that and acknowledge, like, I actually did make this endorsement on pretty shaky grounds. And I didn't have all the information, instead of just being like, well, past is past, and now I'm saying he shouldn't run. So that's all that matters.
Yeah.
It's like, I think there really does need to be more acknowledgement to the past. But because Bernie was such an early supporter, he came right in, that was obviously the most coveted endorsement they could possibly get. It was all kind of gravy from there.
Yeah. And like, we shouldn't lay it all on the feet of Sanders. I mean, Liz Warren endorsed him.
Sure. But I doubt she endorses him if Sanders does it.
Right. No, you're correct in the cascading effect of that. I think that is, you're spot on.
And I think it just, he lent the legitimacy to a campaign that had no business being legitimized, at least not that quickly. And sort of speaks to also, like, because there were a lot of men behind this campaign. Actually, a woman who worked for the campaign, she told the Wall Street Journal the other day that on her way out, she left in January, that she told Platner himself that he is a sexist and misogynist staff. That was like a palpable issue. And so, it was like, these men validate this man, and then because of that, these other men validate this man. And yeah, it was just a lot of, I don't know, people like to talk about how Trump supporters like blindly support him and don't ask too many questions. I feel like in this case, people were just kind of going along, and if they'd asked some critical questions, we wouldn't have been in this scenario.
Yeah, I think the kind of so what attitude that some leftist men had towards Graham Platner is really disturbing, because Donald Trump is president and I don't even remember how many credible sexual assault and misconduct allegations against him. And Kate and I were talking about this before the podcast started today. I think that some on the left are justifying it, almost like, well, it can't be so bad because we have Donald Trump as president. And it's like, that's not the point.
Or why shouldn't we get to have one of our own who isn't accountable for anything?
Can I ask an potentially uncomfortable question?
Sure.
Yeah.
Actually, it's probably not uncomfortable. I feel a little uncomfortable proposing this, but Platner's polling, even before this allegation came out, was really dipping. Like, the last couple of polls that he had showed him losing to Collins and losing ground. And he was polling behind, like, there were more people who said they wanted a Democratic controlled Senate than there were at a percentage basis than there were Platner voters. And to me, that was really concerning. But do you think he would have dropped out of the race if, like, the polling had shown no effect or no dip at all, and he was still winning by 10 or 15 points or whatever he was on Collins?
I think once Jenny Rasico came forward, that was it. And there's really no coming back from that, because like he said in his 11-minute, whatever that video was, it wasn't even his resignation. It was his just like addressing the allegations. He was saying they took away all my resources. They took everything away from me. So it sounded like the faucet had been completely turned off for him.
Okay.
But I guess that that does make you wonder, well, did the party see the polling and did the party feel like it wasn't worth? But I don't think so. And that's just instinct, but I don't think so because it was still close enough that it felt like there was a chance. It's not like he was like completely underwater. And because they had gone so far down this road and he'd already won the primary, like the turning back at that point is such an extraordinary measure that I think they were all in. So I think they were really just, their hand was forced because of the allegation.
Potentially unpopular take. I think I disagree with you.
Sure.
I think the reason he survived all of the other sort of red flags and scandals is because he was winning and people were going, he's our best chance to beat Susan Collins. And I think the second that looked like it wasn't actually the case, he lost all of his leverage to fight back against anything. So I think that no matter what came next, they were going to try to get rid of him regardless, because his campaign did not have positive momentum. And I hate that there's such a cold political calculation behind all of this. And I think it's fine to disagree with me, by the way. Like, I'm not.
Yeah. Well, I just mean when you say get rid of him, because like he'd already won the primary, do you mean like they would just stop kind of giving them all their resources and support, kind of like back away?
I think if the indicators were that he was still going to beat Collins, I think they would have just stuck it out. Actually.
Despite the allegations. Yeah, I don't know. I think that for some reason, everything before rape is fine. And then once you cross this line, it's like this, well, now you've gone and said the R word, and people can't unhear that. And it's such a basic way of looking at the dynamics of a race. And it's such a basic understanding of what women go through and what, like I said, he's a dangerous man with or without the latest allegations. I believe that to be true.
I mean, it should be noted that the New York Times article also had like allegations of non-consensual sexual advances at the least. Forgive me, I don't remember the exact details of it.
He locked a partner in a room.
I mean, abusive, right?
Right. That's the word I've been using. It abusive behavior.
That should be a campaign ender, and it wasn't. And people accused this woman of acting politically because she happens to be a Republican.
Yeah, Lindsay Fifield.
Exactly. Thank you. And that is also disturbing.
Yeah. But then it's like,
so discouraged.
It is. And then on the flip side, you have Jenny Rasko come forward, who is the opposite politically of Lindsay Fifield.
Yeah.
And while there were some people who were like, okay, well, this is now enough. There's still people who are like, well, she's just some lady. What is she talking about? Like why didn't she say this last month? There's never, for all the objections they had to why Lindsay Fifield wasn't a reliable narrator, they were using a lot of the same reasons against Jenny Rasko.
And then you had Ryan Grimm, who said, oh, but she asked for a glute massage, so obviously consented to all of it.
Yeah, the level of victim blaming and trying to frame it as she asked for it, and really it's so crazy because he thought he had like a real gotcha there, and I feel like that came directly from the Platner campaign or Platner himself to Ryan Grimm.
Yeah,
that's not fact. That's my feeling, my impression.
Analysis, yes,
because it didn't seem like a vetted or carefully done thing. The fact that he thought that was a huge gotcha, but then the next message is don't come over. She says is quoted as saying, do not come over. So no matter what she said before that, it doesn't matter. She told him not to come. And then Grimm said something along the lines of like, well, he came over so quickly. Like it was too fast. He couldn't have seen, her message saying no, he was already en route. And it's like, okay, well then when he parks, he looks at his phone probably. And she says, don't come over. And then he let himself into her home. I mean, it's all so obvious. And I think that is what is insulting. It's like, I feel like I'm being treated like an idiot. And if I was told this story about a friend of mine, I'd be like, yeah, that guy is disgusting.
I also want to point out to people, like, it's really common in Maine to leave the doors unlocked in your house, like, culturally. In case people were wondering about that side of the story. Well, Christine, do you want to try to wrap a bow on this?
Yeah, I keep thinking back to when are we going to change the culture, right?
Mhm.
When is this going to be seen as unacceptable no matter what party you belong to?
I think that drawing this line is actually really important, even though it could hurt us in the short term and it's very painful to reckon with. I think progressive women claiming their power is a really important piece of this and not going along to get along for the greater movement. I think emphasizing that, yes, class politics are very important. Yes, we want a thriving working class with labor protections and rights, but that is not at the at the cost of women and people of color and people who are not white men in the party. I think that similarly with trans issues, it's like we can't sacrifice anyone. We're all going together. And so every person in the progressive movement, their identity, who they are, what they bring to it is important and cannot be sacrificed. And so I think making that clear line, and I think a lot of people are now feeling more comfortable, myself included, saying like, no, like rape culture is not it. We're not doing this. And I think, at least I can only speak for myself, but if this comes around again, and I can't imagine it won't, I will feel a lot more comfortable calling balls and strikes from the get-go and trusting my gut when a guy seems like bad news.
Well, Marisa, thank you so much for coming on the show. It's
Thank
always
you.
great to have you, even if we talk about the most depressing things all the time. I keep telling people that we're going to have them back on to talk about happy things, and that's just a lie. I'm sorry, we don't do happy on the show.
I recently got to be a judge at the Mermaid Parade in New York, which is like an annual event during Pride Month in Coney Island, Brooklyn. And people dress up as mermaids, and it's just like a really fun, wholesome thing. And I got an email from a Handbasket subscriber inviting me to be a judge.
Oh my God.
And I wrote back and I was like, I never get to do fun things for this job. Like, yes, I would love to put glitter on my face and come judge the Mermaid Parade.
All right, Marisa, thank you again so much.
Thank you.
And Christine and I will be right back to wrap this episode up. And I'm actually going to tell my Ryan Grimm story during the outro. So make sure you stick around for that. Well, Christine, we got another episode in the books. And I did promise that I would tell folks my Ryan Grimm story.
I didn't see you skeet it out, so this is going to be new for me too.
So Ryan Grimm is a guy who I have wanted to, for everybody to get rid of for a while. I think he is scummy in a lot of ways. He, like, at the last second, tried to torpedo Kat Abba-Ghazaleh's campaign. He only ever does that to women candidates on the left. And that tells me everything I need to know about him. But my story with him is a couple years ago, he slides into my DMs on Twitter and he's like, hey, we're recording a segment on my show. At the time, he had a show for The Hill, I believe it was. And it wasn't really a podcast and it wasn't really YouTube. It was kind of like a live show thing that they did on the Hill website. And he's like, we want to talk about trans rights. Are you down to do an interview? And I was like, yeah, have me on. Like, I don't say no if somebody asks for an interview. So we make all the arrangements. I get in touch with their producer, schedule it. I show up like 5 minutes before it starts. I have my face made up, all the things. And the producer goes, okay, you're all set. And it looks like the other person is in the green room also.
Who's the other person?
And I was like, what? Who? And they're like, oh, and I forget the person's name. They're like, so-and-so, they're going to be debating you today.
What now?
And I was like, huh? And they're like, yeah, you're having a debate about trans rights.
So you were invited on to debate, like, your existence?
It was a turf, yeah. Yeah.
Oh, come on.
Yeah. So I was like, oh, I think there was a miscommunication. I was here for an interview. And she's like, no, you were booked for a debate. And I was like, well, I don't really do debates. And it's not that I don't like, it's not that I'm not good at debates. Like, I would have wiped the floor with this person. It's just that I refuse to do it in the first place.
Yeah.
It's like, there's not equal stakes, right? It's like, this person is arguing that I'm not a woman. I have no equal power counterclaim to that. Like, I can't argue that she's not a woman, right? It's just an obvious power imbalance from the jump, and I just refuse to engage in that type of content. I am perfectly willing to engage with people out over Blue Sky on Twitter at the time in my writing, but I will not do it face to face. I don't think it does any good. I don't think it changes any minds. And I was like, oh, I'm sorry. That's not what I agreed to. And I dropped out, and they just had a straight up anti-trans segment.
Ooh. I'm really glad though that you left them.
And afterwards, his show came over, and he came into my DMs, and he was like, hey, what was that about? And I was like, well, you lied to me. He goes, I didn't lie to you. And I said, I took the screenshot. I'm like, interview. And he goes, oh, well. And he's like, maybe we can have you back on again. And I was like, yeah, I don't think so. Lose my number. Like, don't talk to me again.
Wow.
So that's my Ryan Grimm story. I've felt like he was scummy ever since then.
Mm-hmm.
Fuck that guy. I wish people would stop listening to him, and maybe we would avoid more pain that way. I don't know.
Yeah.
So that's been it for Cancel Me Daddy. This week, we do have a bonus episode where Christine and I are going to talk about Donald Trump getting his loser stink on my favorite soccer team.
Yeah. Let's FAFO to FIFA.
And here is a clip from that right now. And if you like it, go ahead and check the full episode out. It's $5 a month on Patreon, or you can sign up for an Apple Podcast membership. And we have an episode every other week in opposite of our regular episodes. So if you want Cancel Me Daddy every week, those are your places to go for it. And we look forward to seeing you next time.
Yeah, remember, the Knicks were supposed to win in 4, but Trump went to that 4th game.
Yeah.
And they lost. Why they had to win in 5.
And the Trump stink got on them.
Mm-hmm.
It was reported that the England star player Harry Kane played golf with Trump. So now, I think he got the Trump stink now. So if England doesn't win, I think Trump is also responsible for that.
Yes. There is nothing that he touches that is not made worse somehow.
Including the reflecting pool.
Yes, Kate came to visit during the World Cup.
Yes.
We watched a game. We watched at least one game at a bar, right?
We watched part of one game at a bar. We watched another game at your place. I thought it was a lot of fun.
It was fun. But we went down to see the reflecting pool, before the arrest started.
Yeah.
And it is disgusting.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You can see the pond scum.
Mm-hmm.
We can throw a picture of our... We took a selfie in front of the reflecting pool.
Mm-hmm.
I liked that the reflecting pool had its moment, actually.
Yes.
Because nobody goes to the mall to look at the reflecting pool.
We actually overheard somebody saying, I gotta go see the reflecting pool.
Can't wait to see it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, damn, bro. Cancel Me Daddy is a Flytrap Media production, and today's show was made by me, Caitlin Burns, and my incredible co-host, Christine Grimaldi, along with our editor, May Schultz.
Dee Peterschmidt made our theme song, and Romy Tirico designed our graphics. Transcriptions by Heather Langefeld. Our thumbnails are made by Sarah at bursty.com. That's BURSSTY.com. Ads by Multitude Productions.
Our show is made possible by the incredible cancelers supporting our work, especially the members of our Canceler Hall of Fame, with the great power to cancel all of their enemies. Meg.
We appreciate your support.
Happy canceling.